Secrets have a way of revealing themselves in the most unexpected moments, but I never, in my wildest dreams, imagined it would unfold like this. The very moment my brother, Lukas, walked in and caught me in the act, my body froze, yet an inexplicable force within me refused to halt, leaving us both stunned, forever altering the fabric of our reality. It all began on that fateful evening when I returned home after an exhausting journey, the house enveloped in an eerie silence, a silence so profound it seemed to whisper secrets. Mom and Dad were absent, whisked away to some family event, leaving only me and Lukas, who lay sprawled across the living room couch, his fingers lazily strumming a guitar, the soft, melancholic notes barely piercing the quiet. I retreated to my room, the scent of old books and lavender greeting me like an old friend, offering a stark contrast to the chaos of my recent travels. The quiet was a sanctuary, a balm to my weary soul. I tossed my suitcase onto the bed, the physical and emotional toll of the trip weighing heavily on me. As I glanced towards my bed, the soft, inviting comfort of the worn sheets beckoned me like a siren's call. I shed the vestiges of my professional attire, drew the blinds, and submerged myself under the covers, the familiar weight of my blanket a comforting embrace against the world outside. With my eyes closed, the relentless parade of trip memories began to fade, replaced by thoughts of Lukas, his teasing smile, his sudden, palpable presence in the house, and the warmth of his hugs, now more intense, more real. Mere months had passed since we last saw each other, yet he seemed transformed, older, taller, exuding a confidence in his movements that was both new and enticing. My body, caught in a web of confusion and forbidden desire, responded to this new image of him, a mix of curiosity and guilt stirring within me. I shifted beneath the sheets, my skin tingling with a restless energy, my mind wandered, conjuring memories of him that were both innocent and charged with an unspoken desire. It was a longing I couldn't articulate, a dangerous blend of nostalgia and forbidden emotions I was powerless to resist. I closed my eyes, trying to breathe away the feelings, knowing deep down they were wrong. Yet, my body hummed with a need I couldn't suppress. In an attempt to distract myself, I reached for my phone, resuming a TV show where a couple's passionate kiss ignited a fire within me, mirroring the illicit feelings I was battling. My breath grew shallow, the screen's images echoing my inner turmoil. I convinced myself it was just the exhaustion, the trip, anything but the truth I knew lurked in my heart. And then, in that moment of vulnerability, my hand moved beneath the blanket, seeking solace in the forbidden. The door creaked, and I froze, my eyes locking with Lukas's. His gaze was intense, direct, piercing through the veil of my privacy. Lena, his voice sliced through the thick silence, his hand on the doorknob, his presence making the air electric with tension. "What, Lukas?" I snapped, my voice sharp, my cheeks aflame with embarrassment. "Can't you even knock?" He recoiled slightly, his eyes dropping, a gesture that somehow made him even more alluring. "I thought you might want something." "I was just going to ask if you needed a drink," he murmured, his eyes catching the disarray of my sheets, a small, knowing smile playing on his lips before he looked away, his face now mirroring my own flush of red. "Or, not." "Clearly not," I said, my voice trembling with the effort to control my breath. "And it's late, Lukas. I am tired, can you go now?" He hesitated, the air between us charged with unspoken questions, his gaze holding mine, filled with an unreadable mix of emotions. "Right," he whispered, "sure, I'll go." But as he turned to leave, an impulsive, reckless part of me called out, "Wait." He paused, his hand still on the door, his expression shifting from confusion to curiosity. "What?" he asked, his voice a mere breath in the silence. I struggled for words, for any semblance of rationality, but found none. "I'm sorry, I didn't mean to snap," I managed, my eyes meeting his, the tension now a palpable entity, heavy with the weight of what could happen next. As he lingered, his gaze on me felt like a physical touch, igniting a new kind of fire within me. "It's fine," he said, his voice softer, but the intensity in his tone sent my heart racing. "I should have knocked." The silence that followed was not just the absence of sound, but a space where every unspoken thought and desire could flourish, where the air was thick with the possibility of crossing a line that would change everything. He scrambled back, his posture stiff as a board, his eyes a tumultuous sea of confusion and hurt as he tried to piece together the shards of our shattered moment. What just happened?" he whispered, his voice barely a breath, his gaze piercing mine, his body language screaming of betrayal and a pain that seemed to claw at the very core of his being. "It was a mistake, Lucas, a colossal, unforgivable mistake," I replied, my voice trembling like the final leaves in a storm, battling to retain any semblance of composure while shame engulfed me like a relentless tide. I wanted him to vanish, to erase the memory of this night from both our minds, yet I knew, with a sinking heart, that we had crossed into a territory from which there was no return, that some boundaries once violated could never be restored. His eyes, those windows to his soul, sought mine, searching for the warmth that had momentarily connected us, now replaced by my chilling dismissal. I thought you wanted it," he murmured, his voice a whisper of disbelief, his words echoing in the quiet room like the last toll of a bell. I averted my gaze, the weight of his hurt too much to bear, the admission of my own desire sounding like a confession of sin. I confessed, the words tasting like ash in my mouth, but it was wrong, Lucas, all of it. So wrong, and it can never, ever happen again. The silence that fell was thick, almost tangible, as he grappled with the turmoil inside him. His face was a canvas of unreadable emotions as he moved to the window, staring out into the night, his voice a low rumble when he finally spoke. "So that's it? We just pretend this never happened?" His question hung in the air, a challenge wrapped in pain. "It's for the best," I whispered, the lie feeling like a noose around my neck, knowing that the illusion of normalcy would be as fragile as glass. We just forget about it." My mind was a storm of chaos, trying to navigate the wreckage of our relationship, while guilt gnawed at me, a relentless predator. He turned towards me, his eyes probing, his body language a mix of surrender and defiance. "And what if I don't want to forget?" he questioned, his voice a haunting echo, rekindling the fire of tension between us, a stark reminder that the forbidden desires that had drawn us together were still very much alive, potent as ever. I stood there, trembling, caught between the pull of what was and the push of what should be, wondering if this moment was the end or merely a prelude to something even more catastrophic. There was a flicker in his eyes, a dangerous spark that sent a thrill of fear and desire down my spine, a silent acknowledgement that our story was far from concluded, that we were entangled in a dance of forbidden attraction, teetering on the edge of something irreversibly destructive. He nodded slowly, his gaze falling to the floor, a silent acceptance of our new reality, his stance softening to reveal a vulnerability I had never seen. "Right," he murmured, his voice barely a whisper, I should go." Then he left, his exit a whisper of finality, leaving behind a void filled with the echoes of what could have been. Alone with the deafening silence, the memory of his touch, his kiss, haunted me like a specter of lost possibilities. Sleep was a distant dream, so I rose, the cold floor grounding me as I sought refuge in the kitchen. The apartment was eerily quiet, the silence screaming accusations. I poured water into a glass, the simple act a small comfort amidst the storm of my emotions. But then, a soft, mournful sigh from the living room drew me back, pulling at my heartstrings. I moved silently, finding Lukas curled on the couch, his form rigid, his eyes wide, staring into a darkness only he could see. His turmoil was palpable, mirroring my own, forging an unspoken bond. "Lukas," I whispered, my voice slicing through the quiet like a knife. He didn't respond, his gaze fixed elsewhere, lost in his own personal abyss. Sitting beside him, I felt the shift in the air, the space between us charged with unspoken words. He turned, his eyes a stormy mix of emotions, confusion, hurt, and a lingering, undeniable desire. "I'm sorry," I murmured, my hand reaching out, touching his arm, a gesture filled with both apology and longing. He flinched at first but didn't pull away, his reaction a silent plea. "It's fine," he said, his voice flat, empty. It's probably for the best anyway." His eyes searched mine again, looking for something, anything to cling to. "You want me to leave, right?" he asked, his tone challenging, daring me to confirm. I closed my eyes, overwhelmed, letting my feelings guide me into uncharted waters. "I don't know," I admitted, my voice breaking under the weight of our shared pain. "I just don't want to feel like this anymore." And in that moment of vulnerability, he moved, his hand finding my face, his lips brushing against mine with a tenderness that belied the storm within, pulling me close, pressing me back into the cushions with an urgency that spoke of both need and despair. The world seemed to hold its breath as we teetered on the brink of repeating our mistake, the heat between us a testament to the battle between desire and duty, love and law, that raged in our hearts. His hands moved to my shoulders, and he started to tear the fabric of my robe, his actions both gentle and possessive, as if I was his to do as he pleased, and I let him. All sense of control vanished as I was surrendering to him completely. Then his lips met mine again, more intense this time, more urgent, and he whispered against my skin, "Then you don't have to." His words were a command and a promise, and they were also a forbidden invitation to enter a world where nothing was off limits. And as his teeth grazed my neck, I knew that whatever was going to happen next, I was no longer in control, and I was about to let him take over and to surrender to a desire that was too powerful to resist. What happened next left me unspoken. His lips met mine again, more urgent this time, his tongue pushing past my lips, a blatant exploration that left no room for doubt. He ripped the fabric of my robe, his actions both possessive and desperate, as if he was both freeing me and also claiming me for himself, and my body responded to him without permission, my hands gripping his shoulders, pulling him closer, a need that had been burning for so long now finally being unleashed. I could feel his fingers tracing the curve of my waist, and my skin tingled under his touch, each move a spark that ignited a fire, a mixture of excitement and a dangerous fear that made my breath hitch in my throat, and I could no longer tell the difference between right and wrong, between what was forbidden and what was simply inevitable. He pulled me closer, and our bodies met, a collision that was both soft and demanding, our legs entangling, and I felt his hardness against my thigh, a touch that was both thrilling and terrifying. His hands moved over me, exploring every inch of my skin, each sensation pulling me deeper into the vortex as I felt myself being stripped away, layer by layer, both physically and emotionally. He moved his lips to my neck again, tasting my skin, his teeth grazing my flesh, a soft bite that sent a shiver down my spine, and I could feel the tension building, the desire reaching its peak, and I knew that I was about to cross a line, a point of no return, and that whatever happened next would change us forever. Suddenly, I felt his hardness against my thigh, a touch that made my breath hitch in my throat, and that was when he took over, and the world faded away, replaced by pure sensation and an intoxicating mix of forbidden desire and pure pleasure. The sounds we made filled the room, a mix of moans and gasps that echoed our shared transgression, a reminder that we were crossing a line from which we could never return. As the heat rose between us and the tension reached fever pitch, I woke to the sound of soft snores beside me, the morning light filtering through the blinds, casting long shadows across the room. My body ached, a pleasant reminder of the night before, and yet it was still mixed with a dull throb of guilt and a confusion I couldn't shake off. Lucas's arm was draped across my waist, his breath warm against my neck, and I carefully pulled myself away from his body, the tangled sheets a silent testament to the forbidden intimacy we had shared. I couldn't help but glance back at him, at the gentle rise and fall of his chest, at the tousled strands of hair falling across his forehead. He looked more handsome now, more vulnerable, more innocent than he had last night. The memory of his passion, of the raw desire in his eyes, felt like a distant dream, a forbidden fantasy that was now a part of our shared reality, a secret that bound us tighter than ever, and yet I also knew that the transgression we had embraced had set us on a dangerous path. He stirred beside me, his eyes fluttering open, and he met my gaze, a mix of confusion and something else that felt like regret flashing in their depths. "Morning," he mumbled, his voice raspy, a lazy smile playing on his lips, and yet there was something behind his expression that I could not place. "Did we really do that?" he added, his smile fading, replaced by a sudden wave of uncertainty, a question that hung heavy in the air between us.